Topic is suicide among African Americans, and we're talking to Dr. Cupid Poe. And Dr. Poe, we've got about 6 minutes before we end this show for today. And let's give you an opportunity to reflect on some of the things that you believe our audience ought to know about this topic, suicide among African Americans, and what we might be able to do, not only to better identify those individuals that are prone towards suicide, but how we might be able to develop some kind of situation to intervene in order to keep that from happening. Let's do it from that perspective, and let's use all of your knowledge and information that way.
Well, I see suicide as a barometer of a much deeper problem. Not only suicide in terms of completed suicides, but suicide-related behaviors, such as alcohol abuse, drug abuse, sexual promiscuity, road rage, homicide, criminal violence, racism, I think, is a suicide-related behavior. Anytime I do something that's destructive towards me and or destructive towards you or other people, that to me is suicidal behavior. So you can see the problem is very widespread. Now, in the church, we refer to that as sin. Okay, sin is opposition to the will of God. So then the number one problem in the nation today, very clearly, is self-centered behavior. Sin.
Sin. Say it. Sin. Sin.
Sin. That's the number one problem in the nation. And the level of sin right now, I think, is higher than it's been in a long time.
Oh, good.
And unless we do something about it, and we can't legislate it away, we can't turn our heads and think it's going to go away, we're going to have to confront it, we're going to have to acknowledge it, and we're going to have to take some corrective action. Now, obviously, sin is a spiritual problem. We can't medicate it away. Altering our genes is not going to alter the sin problem. Now, what it's going to require is people are going to have to acknowledge their need of God. God is the only power that's able to overcome our sin condition or our condition of despair. Any other solution will only make the problem worse. More money won't solve it. More legislation won't solve it. More so-called freedom won't solve it. Only God can solve his people's problem of despair or sin. So that's what we have here. We have a people who more and more have turned away from God. We have a people in this nation more and more who are choosing to go their own way and to do their own thing. We become addicted to pleasure. We become addicted to excitement. Look at how expanded the entertainment industry is. We're so addicted to excitement until people are selling profanity in music. We hear profanity now in places we never heard it before. I hear parents cursing children. Profanity on television as if it's all right.
Good. Say that.
All right? This is addiction to pleasure. You see, addiction to pleasure is rejection of God. And so addiction to pleasure then leads to despair and is often a manifestation of despair. We've got a problem. We've got a problem. And unless the committed church and other people of goodwill, all right, really begin to pool our resources and begin to call the problem what it really is, and that is we've got a sin condition in the country. There are more antisocial people today in this country than ever before. People are taking advantage of each other in the marketplace like never before. People are abusing themselves and abusing others like never before, and it's not going to get better. School violence is just the tip of the iceberg. Road rage is the tip of the iceberg. Workplace violence is the tip of the iceberg. The recent election infractions, that's the tip of the iceberg. We've got a problem. People apparently have decided that it's all right to do whatever you want to do so long as you don't get caught and so long as it's profitable economically. Not so. All right? There's a God who is creator and sustainer. And unless we conform to what he expects, then the result is despair and therefore suicide, homicide, or both.
And of course, Dr. Poe, what you're also saying is that this is it's a sin problem, but it's a spiritual problem, I think, more than anything. And I think to understand it from a spiritual perspective, that the man is spiritual as well as physical. And to understand it from there, I think it takes away all of those things that folks have in opposition. You know, folks don't have sin, tax sin, and people don't want to be told that they're sinful, you see. But
that's
go
true.
on, yeah. But
that's true. Now, you're right. It's what we sin, but we, you know, well, I mean, I think the word spiritual is a more acceptable word. Okay? But I think we need to be honest with ourselves. Spiritual and sin are two ways of saying the same thing. Okay? All right. The main thing is to acknowledge the fact that we've got a problem and only God and us working together can solve it.
Very good.
All right.
And of course, Dr. Poe, we've got about 45 seconds here today, but we just want to thank you for bringing us that excellent information about suicide, and especially opening our minds in reference to despair and self-destructive behavior, and to understand that suicide is much more widespread than any of us ever thought it was.
Yes, and by the way, until we begin to research more the impact of despair and how it manifests itself in so many different ways, we're still going to be in the dark in many ways about suicide.
Very good. And of course, let me thank you for coming by and giving us that excellent information this morning. And let me encourage our audience to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you and good morning.